Good morning and good afternoon and good evening. Welcome. And that's how big our audience is today. So, welcome. My name's Tim Woodhouse and I'm your host today. And with me is Achint Varia, our solution engineer. And I like working with Achint.
Hello, everyone.
I like working with Achint a lot. And I'll tell you why. What I really like is his deep domain experience around SAP. And I think that going forward, if any of you have a dialogue with us at Winshuttle, this is something which will shine through. And that is one of the things I think makes us unusual. As I said, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And that really shows that we have a global audience with us today, running into the hundreds. And I think that speaks volumes and shows how important this situation, this subject is. And if I can just say, the prize for the most innovative title goes to somebody who's registered as a finance explorer. Now that sounds marvelous. So a little bit of housekeeping. Throughout the webinar, please ask questions and please do use the GoToWebinar questions pane. After the webinar, we will have this recorded and we will share it with you and we will be posting it on our website. So, without further ado, of course we've heard this for a long time. Finance is transforming. It's always transforming. But how is it transforming today? Well, the pressures on us in this arena are fantastic. First of all, we've got disruption in the way that we're expected to work. And now these disruptive models are meaning that data in your ERP is becoming more and more important. And to cap that as well, the data is growing exponentially. And here's a little fact that I learned a few weeks ago. There are 4 times the number of journal lines now than there were 7 years ago. And that's not because businesses are 4 times better performing. It's the fact that everyone's demanding data at a granular level. And now, as well, the demand for data in terms of reporting, it's no longer good enough to be time delayed the following day after the event. Everything's real-time analytics, and that's providing a huge amount of pressure. And almost as well, we've got IT who are again under huge pressure, and time is so precious to them. And in fact, again, using one of my experiences with a customer, one of their IT group said, do you know what? We can't even have a conversation for 6 months. Never mind deliver a project. We can't speak to one of our departments for 6 months. So all of this is creating huge pressure. And to add to that mix, of course, you're being talked around this magic bullet of RPA, which is being thrown around everywhere. But the problem there is that most of these areas are very immature. So what we know is that data is becoming incredibly valuable and a very strategic asset. And going forward, how will the digital winners of tomorrow get there? Well, really, it's about having the confidence and trust in the data in the system. Do we know that that data is granular? Do we know that data is correct? And of course, we're always being asked to do things quicker, and cycle times are being shortened. And as well, with all these pressures on IT, the business teams really are demanding to be empowered so that they actually can make a difference and put automation into practice. And that's very important. So what are the key areas about transforming finance to win? So these are the headlines, 50% of companies reconcile manually, and then you've got the day closing and the amount of incorrect data. So here, what we've got to do is first and foremost remove error-prone manual processes. Because we know humans, we're not very good at this. And also, we've got to be able to move things faster. We need to close the books faster. And of course, you're always told you have to do it with existing resources. And of course, the data, there's more of it. It needs to be more accurate, and it needs to be of a higher quality. And of course, as always with you guys involved in finance, you're always asked to do it quicker, and so be more productive. Time. How do we take back our time that we're spending on this around financial process automation? So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to look to eliminate this tedious, error-prone manual data entry, which, as I said, us humans are not very good at, and our ERPs, and God love them, SAP doesn't help us here with the multitude of screens that we have to go through. We've also got to cut down the rework, because quite often when we load data, if we try and automate the loading, we find there's a lot of fallout and there's a lot of reworking of this data. Do we really need to be checking it every time? So again, we've got to improve that data quality, and reviewing data after the event is so time consuming. Of course, as well, our auditors again are putting pressure on us, and they want to speed this process up. So again, by adopting a solution that the auditors can come in, have a look at, they can test, they can sample, we can speed up the auditing process as well. And of course, everyone would be happy with that. And what about the people? What about the poor people that do the job? You know, we need to work on this and lessen the burnout. People are a lot happier and feel much more valuable if they're doing tasks that actually are more forensic, high valued, rather than just pumping through screens. So, around finance, what are the frequent uses? I don't think you'll be surprised by some of these. So let's look at them. So we've got AR and AP. So we've got loading of invoices, and invoices now have so many lines on them, so we need to be able to load those lines quickly. Again, in terms of receivables, cash allocation, everyone wants the cash allocated quickly and those open items closed out. We talked earlier about journal entries, and these have now 4 times the number of lines they did 7 years ago. So again, becoming very, very time consuming. Fixed assets, travel and expenses, inventory, financial close. Of course, everyone's under pressure to close quickly. In fact, your share price can be affected by your time to close. And that's very important too. And not to forget master data. The master data now is a huge challenge with master data entries, huge numbers of changes, and the maintenance itself is incredibly daunting. Of course, as well, it plays to our friends in global business and shared services too, and they span the whole gamut across the organization. So not only F&A, but human resources. How do we onboard people quickly? Customer service, the supply chain, and again, the challenge for global and shared services are controlling the master data situation throughout the organization. And here's the top 10 transactions that we affect as Winshuttle, and I like the column on the right hand side. This shows our average productivity gain, and that's what we're really all about. So let's look at the traditional model for the business getting something automated. And the way it works is this: the business users, they look at the situation and they decide how they want to improve this. And then they go to IT to develop a solution. And that's, of course, providing IT have got the time. And then they find that the solution doesn't quite deliver, isn't quite what they want, is prone to error, and we have to make improvements. So we get this ping pong effect, going backwards and forwards, and quite frankly, causing perhaps a little bit of frustration along the way too. But the Winshuttle way is different. And let me show you why it's different. Because the way our technology is built, it's built to empower the business users. So the business users can develop amongst themselves what we would call the business super users. And they can develop the scripting and deploy our solution. But IT, don't worry for the IT guys, they can still have the governance over the usage. So they have control without having to do the daily work. And the business super users can then promote their scripts into the end users. And this is fundamentally a much, much better way of working. So that's my introduction. And what I'm going to do now is bring it to life. And I'm going to hand it over to my friend Achin. So Achin, you can take over now. And Achin's going to take you through what this really looks like in how you use it. Over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tim, for setting this up very nicely. So what I'm going to show you today is the Winshuttle technology of interacting with SAP, and what I will show you is really the capabilities that Winshuttle brings to you. But what I would urge you to do is relate these capabilities to the business processes or the projects that you're running at your organizations, or even specific T codes of how these capabilities can be used, right? I will only show you a couple of examples today, which is journal entry and assets related. Again, both finance examples, but related to other scenarios, be it sales order or cost center creation or vendor master. Any of the scenarios that are there in your organization, relate the capabilities to that. There are three key things I want to show you today. One, interaction with SAP via Excel, interaction to SAP via a web form, and not just loading data in, but also extracting data out. So I want to show those three capabilities, and you'll see how that works. So what you see on my screen is a template, and this is an end user experience where the template is already built, and the end user basically fills the data in. So I've got a lot of pull down menus, a lot of validations built into my template. So I've also got a validation which says that my document is balanced. So that's my template. I've pre-filled with the data as an end user. And at the top, because I have a Winshuttle license, I've got this add-in for Winshuttle. I've logged on to my SAP system with my user ID. So all the interactions I do with the system happens with the authorizations that I'm given in the organization. And I've got a script to load the journal, right? So even before I load the journal, I can validate if the data is correct. So it does a line-by-line validation and shows me, yep, everything is fine, and I can load this journal, and I click post to SAP, and the journal is posted into SAP with my user ID, right? So that's an Excel-based form, one journal at a time, and I'm posting it into SAP. Very quick, very easy, easy to use for the end user. The other example I wanted to show you is it's not just one journal, right? Often I see organizations where there are multiple journals that they want to post. Some could be a month-end journal. It could be if you are organizing about 20, 30 different company codes within the same company, so you have an intercompany journal. If you have those sort of scenarios, this is an example where I have a header item relationship with a journal, and I've got multiple journals that I'm posting. Right? Again, I'm running it from row 2 to the end of the sheets, and I'm going to execute this. All right, so for each of the journal, you see the feedback back into my Excel. If there are errors in the sheet, in the data that you're uploading, you also see the errors here. So clearly the GL account is incorrect. So I need to correct that. So let me correct the GL account. And now all I have to do is run only on errors, and it's smart enough to find out which line was in error, and then just fixes that and then posts that journal into SAP. Right? So for an end user, this is a much better experience, and you're making it easy, so you're ensuring that the users enter the right data, validate it, and then post it into SAP. Let's say the user does not know what to enter in certain fields. We've also got the tight integration with SAP, so you can look up values into SAP with the standard SAP search help. So it's really powerful and tight integration. And so that's all Excel experience. If you wanted to do the same thing on a web form, we also give you that capability. So what you see now is a web form where I have, I've got rules. So based on the company code I select, I'm already populating my currency. I have date picker, so I can fill the date. I have all the validations happening here. And then once that is done, I can validate the journal against SAP. Again, that validation happens real time through the web browser. I can pass it for an approval process. So again, ensuring the 4 eyes principles. Another set of eyes have to view the data before it posts into SAP, and then I can pass it through a workflow process. So again, we can interact with an Excel file and through a web form, and then once it goes through the workflow process, you see a task list where you see the journal entry that you need to process, and then for different personas you see different views, and then you can post this into SAP. Again, very easy to do, and you're empowering the business users to actually use this in a much better way, ensuring better data quality. The other example that I wanted to show you is often the challenge is not just around loading data into SAP. The challenge is also around updating data, making sure your data is up to date that's already in the system, right? In order to do that, we've got this concept of, as we call it, round trip, where you extract data out of SAP, update it, and then load it back into SAP, right? So here what you see is I've got a template for asset master data, and you've got various attributes of that built into this template. So how much it costs, what's my insurance, where am I sourcing it from, and let's extract that asset information into my sheet first. So now if I click run, I'm actually getting all the assets for that specific asset class in my company code from SAP. So now it goes at the table level and extracts all of that information in the relevant columns. All right, so while this is being extracted, we'll probably extract about 150 to 200 assets. And then once it's extracted, I want to change some of the inventory dates and also the cost, because every year I want to make sure that my costing that's in my system is up to date, right? So 105 records are extracted. Okay, so now I want to update, let's say, the net worth. What's my net worth right now in my system? So let's say my first asset has gone down to 300, that's gone down to 500, and then this one has gone down to 400. And I also want to, let's say, update some other fields. Okay, so I've updated a few assets. Now all I have to do is select the right script from my template. So I want to update the asset in mass, and again, I can execute this. What happens is it actually goes into AS02, changes the assets, and gives me the feedback real time in my Excel. So if I made any changes, I'll get a feedback here. If those assets were not changed, it will basically say no changes were made, right? So again, keeping your data up to date and also loading your data, which is always correct, and that again fits in very well with what Tim was mentioning. It's a strategic asset, and you need to make sure that it's correct and live in the system. So while this was being uploaded or updated, you must have noticed there's another sheet that popped up, and this is really the backup sheet. It's the backup of the data that was already there in the system before we made the change. So if you wanted to do, let's say, an undo of this update, you have this backup sheet also for audit capabilities to make sure you can undo it to your previous version. And this capability of extracting data is really powerful also for ad hoc reporting, right? So what I've got here is, let's say a report for a salesperson, where I'm using Winshuttle to extract information from SAP to Excel. So I've extracted this using the same technology, and then using Excel's capability to do the reporting, right? So you can also use it for reporting purposes. So that's a lot of information. But again, I would reiterate what I started off with. I'm showing you capabilities, which is Excel to SAP loading data one at a time, or mass, or doing the same thing via web form. And also, in order to keep your data alive, you can extract, update the data in Excel, and then load it back in SAP in no time. Okay. I'll pass it on back to Tim to share a few examples that our customers have successfully used Winshuttle for.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Achin. That was great. And just to recap what you saw there, you saw two forms of automation. The automation where you're in control around the Excel sheet and you actually decide to push the data, we call that collaborative robotics. And then you saw Achin show you the web form, and that's where we're collecting the data, but we're only collecting correct data. And at the end of that, that will be a completely automated process. And that's more robotics. So remember that, cobots and robots. That's what Winshuttle do. So looking at the web form, what happens after the part you saw from Achin? Well, this web form needs to go for approval. So we'll make an entry, it'll go for review, it can get sent back again, it can be corrected and approved, and finally our robotic engine picks it up and puts it in. So again, it's delivering the right data fast and efficiently, but most importantly, the right data. So what about an example? Maersk Line. I don't know whether you all know Maersk. I certainly do. I came across Maersk about 20 years ago when I used to work for a Danish company, and I could not believe how big this organization was. Ships, airplanes, trains, trucks, and even its own travel company. And you can imagine that with that goes a phenomenal amount of data and transactions. You know, Maersk have 25,000 employees, and at any one time they have 600 vessels and tens of millions of containers moving around the world. But that meant that they had a real challenge around data and how they move the data into SAP. They thought they'd come up with a solution, and that was asking IT to develop a combination of a Microsoft Access and Excel macro solution. But soon, of course, it got out of control, and they were struggling with more than 2,000 scripts and templates, and that was just a nightmare for them to manage. So it was Maersk IT that came out to find the solution, and they found Winshuttle. But they were concerned, were they going down the right road? Were they looking at the vendor that could actually make the difference in the transaction time? And to help with that, what Winshuttle proposed, and is something we do for everyone, is what's called a business value assessment, or a BVA, where we will help you, or as we did with Maersk, help them identify the specific SAP processes that are good for automation and give a blueprint as to what the expected gain can be. And of course, the results, well, in most of the processes that we put out with Maersk, the efficiency gain was phenomenal, with an average of 90% or more. And of course, this is a very sustainable approach to automation, because remember what I said about the business super users? These guys are now in control and not having to keep coming back to IT. Again, really, really vital. And the investment itself paid back in no time. These are real tangible results. And just to highlight one, here's a process, F28 processing. Very simple. As you can see, this was a process, lots of transactions. It took them on average 150 seconds. Then by building the Winshuttle script, again, the Winshuttle script took the process down to less steps, and on execution, look at that. An incredible amount in time savings. And the whole of Maersk's program has been defined like that with us. And I can tell you another process is something called clearing payments. That was 90 seconds down to 9. And we have lots of other examples within Maersk. So that's an example. But I mentioned business users building, authoring these scripts and these robotics. Achin, I'm going to hand back to you now, and you're going to show us very quickly how easily this is done.
Fantastic. So now we come to how do we build these solutions, right? And as Tim mentioned, it's business-led. Business can do this. So all you need to know is how the transaction code works, and you'll be able to record a script quickly. So I'm going to record a script for asset create. What you see here is my authoring experience where I want to record a transaction code to create an asset in the system. The transaction code is AS01. To create a journal, it's FB01. So whatever transaction code is, you mentioned it here. You can map it to an Excel, Access, SQL, whatever your interface type is. In this case, I want to keep it as Excel, and let's start recording this. All right, so now the asset create screen comes up. So I want to create the asset in my 3200 class in company code 1000. Let's say I want to create a laptop as an asset, one at a time. So one, and then let's give it a cost center. Let's say where is it coming from? So it's coming from Best Buy, and it's of the brand HP. And yeah, so whatever information fields that you want in your template, you basically fill that up, and then once that is done, you click the save button and the control comes back. Right, so it's a three-step process. The first step is recording the transaction code, which we've just done. Now we'll come to the second step, which is map. So you'll do a drag and drop mapping. So that's your fields that you had touched, and that's your Excel interface. All we have to do is drag and drop mapping from your Excel to SAP, or you can also do it in mass. In this case, I'll just do that. Let's say from column D onwards, so you can map it however you want. You can make certain fields as mandatory or not if you want. And that's your second step done. Your mapping is completed. Let's just map the log and the validate columns so we can quickly test it while we've just built it. And now if I go to the run option, let's copy this data. And let's see if we can create assets in mass in our system. Fantastic. All right, so that's done. My template is created. Let me save this first, and let's validate if this works for me. Fantastic. It's success. So it is being processed. Let's try to run it in our test system and see if the assets are being created. Great. So the script works to create an asset. So as you notice, it was a simple three-step process: record, map. I've done the run. Now all you have to do is publish this to an Excel file. So create asset script, and you can publish it to a specific Excel file. I'll set it to this default one, and that's it. The script is published. Now you can send that Excel file to the business users, and they can just use this template to load assets in mass. This was just one T code. The same concept would work across any transaction code in SAP, right? So that was loading data into SAP. The same concept works also for extracting data out of SAP, and even for web forms, this is still the starting point, and you import that into a web form to build a form. All of this is business-led and governed by IT. I'm going to pass this back to Tim.
Thanks, Sachin. So, thanks, Sachin. Much appreciated. I'm just going to summarize now about what we've seen and what we're actually positioning here. So, first of all, the data. We know we must be able to trust the quality of the data we put in. And manual data entry is prone to errors or rework, as we know. Efficiency, we're so much under pressure to be more efficient and do things quicker. The cost, again, we're always under pressure. How are we deploying our FTE? How can we reduce the cost around the process? And as well, do what we do. Is it scalable? Can we do more? We're always being asked to do more. And again, with manual processes, you can't. You're always looking at this uphill struggle of more data, more entries, more staff. Again, with Winshuttle, we can alleviate that. And I think probably one of the best things you saw there was the empowerment, which was, you just saw Achin there build an automated process. How easy was that? And it's now in your hands as business users. And I'll always say, again, managed and governed by IT, but you can actually become this empowered business team. And that's absolutely vital. So again, we don't just do finance. We will go straight across all of the SAP domain, whether it be FI, MM, sales and distribution, plant maintenance, or even production planning. Winshuttle is a very unique product. And again, you saw us talk about our combination of collaboration, where you're using the Excel and you're then telling the robotic to pick it up. So again, collaborative robotics. And then you also saw the managed forms and the approvals leading to a completely touchless transaction into SAP. And that's full Winshuttle robotics. So for us, as I say, we've been around for a number of years. You'll be in great company. We have more than 2,500 customers. We have a global technical support team. We have user conferences and local user groups, and that's really important because we want Winshuttle users to come together and actually learn from each other. We have a comprehensive knowledge base, and of course our solutions are available in multiple languages too. And not to mention, of course, never to forget, of course, we are SAP certified, and we are looking to the future because we're SAP S/4HANA certified as well. So that brings us pretty much to a close. We would love to continue the conversation with you. You can get in touch with us through these details here. Online, we have a phenomenal amount of content for you to digest. Demos, white papers, case studies. We have webinars that you can actually take on demand. It's all there for you. The last thing I'm going to do, because we are right on time, is look to take a couple of questions. So
I do see one of the questions, and that goes, can we combine multiple transactions within the same spreadsheet? For example, showing asset details with cost center details that are not on AS01 transaction. So great question. And yeah, going back to what Tim was mentioning about, this being a robotics engine, yes, we can link multiple transaction code in the same spreadsheet, and you can call those multiple transaction codes one after the other. So the first transaction runs, that can almost become an input to the second transaction, and then that would run, and that can become an input to the third transaction. And all of that can run seamlessly for the end users. And that's a really powerful positioning for Winshuttle. I see there's another question in terms of performance. Does this affect SAP performance? Often we go to IT and they don't allow us to extract information out of SAP because it affects the performance. So yes, Winshuttle's got a patented technology, and that would throttle the amount of information that comes out, and we make sure that the SAP performance is not affected. And I'll take one last question. What is the maximum number of lines that can be loaded? So Winshuttle does not put any limits on it. Excel has a limitation of 1 million lines. So it's the environment variables which imposes the limitations, but Excel does not put any. Winshuttle does not put any limitations on this. I think that's it. The rest of the questions, I do see a lot of other questions flowing through. What we do is respond that in an email, or it would be on our website when this recorded webinar does get posted.
Thanks, Achin. That's absolutely great for providing those answers. We'll follow up on the rest. And may I just sign off by thanking you all for your attention today. I hope you liked what you've seen. I think you'll find it very different. And as again, just to sign off, what you'll get from Winshuttle is deep domain experience that I think is absolutely vital. So thank you all very much, and we wish you, as I said before, a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Thanks very much.
Thank you all.